Hey Dungeon Crawlers, Conrev here with another low-level build guide for D&D 5e. This time, we'll be going over creating a Charisma-based Fighter Warlock build, utilizing the Samurai and Hexblade subclasses. Samurai as a subclass is a well-balanced melee combatant that is both combat-focused and social pillar-based class features. The main advantage of the Samurai subclass is their on-demand access to advantage through their Fighting Spirit class feature. By multiclassing into Warlock and the Hexblade subclass, we can supplement the Samurai's combat prowess and social adeptness by building around Charisma. I would recommend this build if you're looking for a character that can quickly bring down a single high-value target that also excels in social-based roleplay situations. For point buy, if you're planning to use medium armor, I recommend a 10, 14, 15, 8, 8, 15 spread, and a 13, 12, 15, 8, 8, 15 spread if you plan on using heavy armor. Personally, I like using medium armor to avoid disadvantage on stealth checks. For standard array, I would go 12, 13, 14, 8, 10, 15. Strength and dexterity can be swapped depending on which type of armor you'd like to use. If you're rolling for stats, prioritize charisma and constitution. You will need at least 13 strength or dexterity to meet the fighter multiclass requirements, and at least 13 charisma to meet the warlock requirements. Moving on to races, half-elf is the obvious optimal choice for this build. You get ability score increases to charisma and +1 to 2 other stats, one of which you should definitely put into constitution, and I would put the other point into dexterity. For the dexterity point by spread, this allows you to bring your dexterity down to 13 and increase your strength to 12. You could also put this point into strength and adjust your point spread accordingly. You also get dark vision, 2 skill proficiencies, which I recommend you put into one of the 4 charisma-based skills, either persuasion, deception, intimidation, or performance. Do note, when you become a samurai, you also gain proficiency in either persuasion, performance, insight, or history, so just keep that in mind. You'll also get advantage against spells that attempt to charm you. Most importantly, you'll get access to the Elven Accuracy feat. This feat gives you a +1 ability score increase to either Dexterity, Intelligence, Wisdom, or Charisma, which we'll be putting into Charisma, but it also allows you to reroll 1 dice whenever your attack roll has advantage, essentially giving you 3 dice rolls instead of 2. The next race I'd recommend is a Scourge Aasimar. You get the ability score increases in Charisma and Constitution, Dark Vision, Resistance to Radiant and Necrotic damage, Healing Hands, which lets you heal an amount of hit points scaled to your character level every long rest, the Light Cantrip, and Radiant Consumption, which allows you to deal additional radiant damage to you and each creature within 10 feet equal to half your level, and also deal extra radiant damage equal to your level to one target when you deal damage with an attack or a spell. The first damage effect of radiant consumption is guaranteed damage, and the second damage effect with the samurai's on-demand access to advantage is all but guaranteed. Because these features scale with character level, you won't lose any power from multiclassing. The next option, the Warforge, leans more towards a defensive build. Again, I recommend selecting +2 Charisma and +1 Constitution. You'll get a +1 bonus to Armor class, a skill, and a tool proficiency, complete immunity to disease, advantage against being poisoned, and resistance to poison. Nothing much else to say here. Warforged are just a great choice for a starting race for almost any class. Finally, if you want to build your character to focus more around roleplay and social interaction, I recommend rolling as a Changeling. You get a +2 to Charisma and can add +1 to Constitution. You'll get to select proficiency in 2 of the Charisma-based skills, and the main reason to select this class, the ability to change your appearance and voice. This isn't a magic-based transformation, like the Disguise Self spell, so it doesn't change the appearance of what you're wearing, but it won't be exposed by spells like Detect Magic, and it enables an Infiltrator playstyle to allow your character to go places they normally wouldn't have access to, and to talk their way out of potentially sticky situations. For level progression, you start off the build level 1 as a fighter. This gives you access to heavy armor, martial weapons, second wind, and a fighting style. For your fighting style, I recommend taking either defense to get a +1 bonus to armor class when you're wearing armor, or dueling for a bit more offensive power. You can also go archery or great weapon fighting, but just remember you can't use Hex Warrior with a bow or two-handed weapon until Warlock level 3 when you get Pact of the Blade. This first level will be a pain point for the build because you're still required to use strength or dexterity for your attack rolls. At level 2, this problem disappears when you start multiclassing into Warlock and immediately take the Hexblade subclass. This will delay your extra attack by 1 turn, but in return, you get access to 2 cantrips, 2 known spells, a first level spell slot that you regain on short rests, Hex Warrior, and Hexblade's Curse. Hex Warrior lets you use your Charisma modifier for attack and damage rolls, and as mentioned before, you won't be able to use two-handed weapons until Warlock level 3. The exception to this is the Longsword, which has the versatile weapon property. This property lets you two-hand the longsword for a D10 damage die instead of a D8, while still fulfilling the verbiage for Hex Warrior. Hexblade Curse is a bonus action that targets a creature within 30 feet. Against that target, you add your proficiency bonus to damage rolls. Your attack rolls of 19 or 20 count as critical hits, and if your target dies, you'll regain health based on your Warlock level and Charisma modifier. At level 3, you'll dip back into Fighter, where you'll gain access to Action Surge. This allows for some burst damage combos with your melee attacks in conjunction with Hexblade's Curse. At level 4, you'll finally become a Samurai and get access to the Fighting Spirit class feature. This gives advantage on all weapon attack rolls for a turn, and can be used 3 times every long rest. On a high value target, such as a boss, your burst combo should be Hexblade's Curse while approaching on turn 1. Turn 2, make your attack with Fighting Spirit active, Action Surge to attack again, then continue to use Fighting Spirit on subsequent turns. At level 5, you'll take another level in Fighter for either the ability score increase or a feat. If you're playing as half-elf, I highly recommend getting the Elven Accuracy feat to supplement your burst combo. Other great choices are Mobile for more combat mobility to weave in and out of fights, or Great Weapon Master or Sharpshooter for when you get Pact of the Blade. At level 6, this will be your last level in Fighter where you get extra attack. With Elven Accuracy, your turn 2 attack with Hexblade's Curse, Fighting Spirit, and Action Surge effectively rolls 12 d20 die with a chance to critically hit on a 19 or 20. At level 7 and 8, with 2 more levels in Warlock, you'll get 2 more known spells, 1 more spell slot, 2 Eldritch Invocations, and finally Pact of the Blade, which will let you use Hex Warrior with any type of weapon. For your invocations at level 7, I recommend Agonizing Blast to shore up Eldritch Blast and Devil's Sight as a good general invocation. At level 8, you can replace one of these invocations with Improved Pact Weapon for a +1 bonus to your weapon, as well as the ability to use bows. Moving on to cantrips and spells. Once you get your first level in Warlock, you get access to 2 cantrips. For melee damage, your best options are Booming Blade and Green Flame Blade. For range damage, Eldritch Blast basically outpaces any other range cantrip option. And for utility, your best options are between Prestidigitation, Mage Hand, and Minor Illusion. Personally, I would choose Eldritch Blast for a consistent ranged option, and Mage Hand for out-of-combat utility. Because you only have 1 level in Warlock for the majority of this build, you won't have too many options for spells, and you'll be limited to 1 spell slot per short rest until you get your second level of Warlock, when it bumps it up to 2. In this scenario, I recommend you focus on utility spells to use as panic buttons when the situation arises. First level spells such as Shield for more tankiness and Expeditious Retreat for more mobility are perfect for this. Or you could consider high impact spells such as Hex and Cause Fear. At level 8, you'll get access to second level spells, and you can swap out one of your first level spells with an additional second level spell. There are plenty of good choices here. Shadowblade can give you an additional source of advantage if you fight in dim light or darkness. Blur or Mirror Image are your defensive options. Misty Step gives tremendous mobility. Darkness brings both battlefield control and another source of advantage if you have the Devil's Sight invocation. And finally, Invisibility is a good option to further support the Infiltrator playstyle. Alright, that's it for the low-level fighter Warlock build guide. If you like this content or have any suggestions, let me know in the comments.